I like Beauty and the Beast. I don't like what became of the concept. See someone more than what they appear on the outside is a trope liked by some, hated by others. And in my case, I really like it. I believe it's very sweet and very charming. I liked it until media started to sugarcoat pretty toxic behaviors, excusing them on, but he will change by the end, giving away more of a cute girl fixes bad boy kind of thing, which I'm not really a fan of. So, I took that trope and flipped it upside down in the story of my video game project. But before we start, a quick introduction. Hi, I'm Sophie Stardrop, game director of HeartStrings, a Yandere Story. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new, I hope you stay until the end. If you've ever felt like the fixing someone trope is kind of bad and kind of toxic actually, this one's for you. Today, I'll give my arguments as to why I don't often like this trope in media, how I gave my own take on it, and what it means for my game and its themes. Heads up, late spoilers and heavy themes. The description lists the specific franchises mentioned for spoiler warnings. So strap in folks, let's do this! Let's define the trope quickly, since I believe it evolved over time, and the current trope I'm criticizing feels more inspired by the original trope if anything. In classic fairy tales, love redeems the beast. More often than not, a woman character decides to look inside a man character who is often misjudged, dangerous, and might even show those attributes on the outside. One of the most iconic movies depicting this is Beauty and the Beast. A girl named Belle, who doesn't quite fit in, gets trapped in an abandoned castle by the Beast, who as it turns out, was cursed because he was prideful and mean to a witch. The curse can only be broken once the Beast is loved by someone. Beast slowly changes and becomes kinder to Belle and the people trapped in the castle with him, who are also cursed. Beast adapts to Belle's needs and desires. Drama, Beast becomes human again and they live happily ever after. There's a lot more happening to the story, and if you want to see it, then I don't know, just go to Disney+. Another example is Shrek, where an ogre, aforementioned Shrek, is sent to save a princess named Fiona so she can marry Lord Farquaad. Fiona doesn't like Shrek is an ogre, but that's because she herself is cursed with becoming an ogre during the night, and this very same curse is the reason why she was trapped in the tower for almost all of her life. But as the movie goes on, they bond and develop a more romantic relationship. I mentioned Shrek, since while Shrek thought he was good with living alone and hated in the swamp, during a conversation with Donkey in the movie, we learned Shrek didn't necessarily like being hated, but just got used to it. Fiona learns this and decides to be kinder to him, and look beyond just what the ogre exterior looks like. This is the heart of the trope, looking into a person more than their surface level appearance or behaviors. And while this trope is often depicted with a woman as the person who looks a bit deeper into the love interest, in reality it can be both ways. Despite how wholesome this trope can be, as time went on, it kinda developed into something a bit more toxic. Let's talk about the problems with this trope in more modern media. First, it takes the pressure off him. In stories like After, from 2019, the love interest, named Harding Scott, lashes out and breaks stuff constantly when he's angry. And while the movie does acknowledge these things are wrong, it also frames these things as being a result of trauma. And look, I'm not here to tell you that trauma is bad, or that trauma survivors must be perfect victims. But I believe this clip from Donald Quanti can explain it better than I can.
Hagamos una pequeña comparación. Versus
Second, it shifts the effort onto her. She's the one learning his moods, learning how to make him relax. She's his antidepressant, the only woman who can calm him down. AKA something that can only work in a fantasy movie. Third, it chips away her agency. She is no longer a person with her own goals and becomes the eyes of the audience for his redemption. That's why I didn't even mention her name. And it's not just a thing of the guy being the bad guy. Can we talk about how trying to fix someone implies you don't really love who they are right now? I understand wanting to help someone out of a bad situation, but it's completely different wanting to change them. And it kind of feels like they would rather date someone else than their supposed love interest. Help and support is something you give to someone. Changing them is control you have over them. If you can't love your partner for who they are now, and instead you only see the potential of who they could become, then you don't love that person. You love the plan you made up in your head about them. In other words, the idea of who they could be, not them. That's the main problem I have with modern take on the trope. It's idealization of love and love partners, a fantasy of power at best and romanticization of abuse at worst. Some stories decide to challenge this trope, focusing on living these relationships, like the movie It Ends With Us, made in 2024. A movie that follows a woman who recognizes a pattern of harm in her love partner and chooses to leave, centering her own safety and the safety of her child. There's been discussion on this movie depicting the book properly, but I'm more so bringing it as an example of how this trope has been flipped over in other stories. I respect these stories, I believe they matter. However, I decided to take a different approach. This is where my game project comes in. HeartStrings, a Yandere Story. HeartStrings is a story told from the point of view of the Yandere protagonist. It's about love, control, and power. My game features a kind of similar trope with the love rival and the love interest relationship. And while I could make the story go into a similar route to It Ends With Us, making the love rival a more victim-like character, yeah, in reality, I don't think this would be the best option. Making the love interest someone undesirable could make the entire experience feel pointless and wrong. And if I made the love rival a pure victim while you play as the yandere for the toxic guy, well, by that point, you might as well just switch the roles and make the girl the love interest and the yandere is trying to get rid of her toxic boyfriend, which wouldn't be bad as an idea by itself, but it's just not the story I want to tell. I'm not writing a rescue story, I'm writing a power story, and this is how it goes. In my game project, the main theme of the story is power and control. As such, I decided to give every character a different type of power. Not in a literal sense, but more of an internal sense. Let me explain. Fumeko's power is decision over outcomes. She doesn't wait for life to happen, she selects what happens and to whom. I've always expected the players to know Fumeko is a murderer since day one, and this is not something Fumeko keeps hidden from the player either. The fact isn't a twist, it's context. It tells you the scale of control she is willing to claim and the price she is willing to pay for it. When you play through her, you're the one who chooses how many lives she will end in every run, what path she will take, and how she'll achieve her goals. That's why she's the protagonist, both in narrative and in a meta sense. Fumeko wants security over her own actions. She wants to decide where the story will lead, even if it means ending it for someone else. Hisoka's power is physical force and presence. He is one of the strongest, most imposing characters in the cast, and that kind of power is known the moment he enters any room. On top of that, his hands are not particularly clean either. After the tutorial, Hisoka has an encounter with another character called Hiroshi, and only one of them lives alive. I'm not going to linger on the details here, but matters is what happens to Hisoka after. Guilt and shame flood in. He's not proud of what he did. He wants distance from it. He wants to believe this is not all that he is, a monster. And in those moments of vulnerability, he becomes easier to control. Kawa's power is social manipulation. She influences people at her command. On the surface, she is kind and gentle with her words. Underneath, she is somewhat different. Right after Hisoka kills Hiroshi, she is the one who walks in. She sees the shock, hears the apology that can't undo anything, and decides to help Hisoka change and become his new guiding light. She wants to fix him, so he can believe he's not the monster his actions show. In fact, she tells him she sees more than a monster. He believes her, and from there, the shape of the weak starts to bend. Not because she heals him, but because she directs him. These are the powers and types of control the characters fight against. Fumeko's will to decide, Hisoka's force under the weight of remorse, and Mei's ability to steer people with words. In a constant struggle of power, someone will have to give in. As I mentioned, after the tutorial, Hisoka kills Hiroshi. Mei didn't know anything about Hisoka's true nature before that moment. In fact, she only ever saw him as an old classmate of hers. She walks into the aftermath and finds him frozen between panic, denial, and very heavy self-loathing. She doesn't run when she finds a scene. In fact, she moves closer. She comforts him and sets an agreement. She will help him keep it secret, as long as he allows her to be his guiding light, the voice of reason when dark moments arrive. Without many other options, the agreement is settled. Why him? Control. Mei wants someone under her wing the same way she already has Yumi, a secondary character in the cast. Yumi is Mei Kawa's childhood best friend. Yumi watched how her best friend changed after a tragic incident and tried to help her, bring her back to her old self. Yet, without noticing, she reshaped herself to do anything for the girl she loved. Mei looks at Hisoka and sees a chance to repeat that situation with someone who has the kind of strength Yumi doesn't, physical presence. Partially for protection, partly just for the feeling of power and influence over someone else, she doesn't need to kill to control. He did something wrong, he needs structure. He can repay the help later. It's a transaction dressed as care, and she believes she's the best person to manage it. Her tactics are on display, and they are simple. Steady voice, no slow movements, no questions that push too far. She suggests next steps without calling them orders. Mei rarely lies, she just times her truths. That's the kind of relationship I'm proposing here. A battle of control, if you will. None of these characters are good people, but they all have a common goal, even if the means to get to that goal are different. Over the weekend, and into the week you play, Hisoka and Mei will deepen their bond, and that's something you'll get to see for yourself. And before I mention it, yes, Fumeko has been watching the entirety of the previous scene I described. She was hidden in a conveniently shaped bush. If you want behind-the-scenes dialogue, route notes, and even this shaped bush, you can support me on Ko-fi, on the super support tier and above. I'm going through a rough moment right now, so I also have commissions, in case you want one. Going back to the video. On the surface, her reaction looks like jealousy, the fantasy of a partner in crime, and yet it slips out of her hands. It's a bit childish, isn't it? But underneath, it's a little bit different. Someone else is changing the only person that may understand Fumeko, and that's not acceptable. As I explained before, Fumeko wants two things at once: control and company. While she doesn't understand the real roots of her desire, she does understand she wants a partner in crime, someone who won't flinch at her antics, and someone who will stand beside her. While I don't want to spoil her entire backstory, I can say with confidence that Fumeko grew up in a place where control was not hers. So, she learned to associate the lack of control with pain. That's why Mei isn't just a love rival. Mei is actively putting Fumeko at risk of having her entire safety fall down. To put it in a way, Mei is taking the steering wheel of someone Fumeko marked as her own. Not like a trophy or an object, but more so a match for the kind of life she wants. Someone she can relate to and feel at home with. As such, Fumeko's near-term goal is direct. Remove the rival, restore control, and make space to date Hisoka and fulfill her fantasy. If removing her rival means ending her life, Fumeko gladly accepts that cost. Besides, it's not like she hasn't done it before. That's the motivation under her choices right now. Mei interferes with her control and safety. Hisoka offers the possibility of company. It makes sense to eliminate her, because it will give her both, right? Except, maybe, it's not right. Because that's not how companionship works. Either you let go of control, or you'll live in a fantasy doomed to fail. After all, there's only one ending where she has real companionship. The only one that requires her to give up control. From here, the story plays out over 1 week, Monday to Friday. You move through each day. A mistake or a different choice on a given day can lead you into a different version of an ending, or maybe show a completely different ending. Right now, we have over 13 endings planned. One ending for every day of the week, one variant per day, one variant ending per day, neutral endings, joke endings, and true ending. And depending if you count game overs as endings, we have one where Hisoka rejects Fumeko, one where Hisoka kills Fumeko, and one with Fumeko and Hisoka being taken by the police, as well as a variant to that one where only Hisoka is taken away, making it a total of over 17 endings. If you'd like to see me talk about some of the endings we have planned and some potential endings, let me know in the comment section. These endings reveal different sides of each character and drop pieces of lore across routes, on top of providing fun challenges for the players. Since we're talking about this, I want to mention it. We're far away from this goal yet, but I'd like to have the demo of the game be just the first 2 days of the week, with a couple of endings but not a complete experience. Again, we're far away from that goal, but I feel like I wanted to mention it. About Mei and Hisoka, even without Fumeko, they would still fail. Mei is right about one thing. Hisoka needs to change if he's going to stop causing harm. What she's wrong about is turning herself into his guide. Trying to steer someone's growth is still controlling them. The most unique route between the other routes is True Ending. It's one of the only endings where Mei is alive. I won't go into details here, but it asks for choices that push toward hard conversations and real accountability. So you can guess just how excited we are to continue working on the dialogue. Stories can hold hard truths without turning them into excuses. Hisoka and Fumeko are not only traumatized children, they're also people who did harm. While I believe it's important to know where the problem comes from, it's equally important to show how these things don't excuse what they did. Knowing the cause of the problem can help stop it, but it cannot revert back the damage already done. A victim can become an abuser, and if they couldn't stop it before, they can stop now. If they can't fix the things they've already done, at least they can stop it before even more people get hurt. And most importantly, if change happens, it has to come from them. Not from a partner's idea of who they should be, and not from a promise made on someone else's behalf. It must come from them. I know a lot of people don't like heart-to-heart conversations, especially because they're kind of cliché. But if there's an appropriate moment to just sit down and talk, it's the moment where they share what they've been through, who they are, and what made them be in this situation. What do they owe to the people they hurt? What choices do they refuse from now on? Two people shaped by pain still have to decide what they do with their hands, their time, and their power. Helping someone is standing beside their choice to be better. Changing someone is trying to drive them into what you believe is better. It's important to make clear that they are not the same, and that's something I want to tackle in my story too. The line I draw can be summarized by this: no one gets written out of responsibility. Fumeko will change if Fumeko chooses to. Hisoka will change if Hisoka chooses to. If they can't undo what it's done, they can at least stop the damage from spreading. And if they can't change alone, they'll have at least one person to rely on in moments of weakness, from actions no one but them can understand. That's the only path that leads to an ending showing their future. The only path that leads to real control. Self-control. There's a lot more I could talk about, but I feel like the video is long enough. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. If you want to see behind the scenes stuff, you can go to my Ko-fi. Links in the description. Remember to drink water, stay healthy, and see you in the next one. Ciao ciao!